Well, you can call it a calculated move. Shelley Silver and Bill Rapfogel, they are accused of quietly teaming up and plotting to keep a lot vacant on the Lower East Side, and they've done so for decades, the allegation follows. Now, an article in the Times says it was all a part of a move to maintain the neighborhood's quote-unquote Jewish identity. Earlier today, I spoke with Russ Butner, the Times reporter, who broke that story. You know, I just think to the common observer, they think of the island of Manhattan and basically every inch of real estate being fought over, that the concept of having acre upon acre of land that just basically sits idle for almost a half of a century here is beyond the scope of comprehension. I'm curious how you came upon this story and how literally this has been going on for the better part of 4 decades, some of the debate about what to do with it, and yet here we stand with the ground still uninhabited.
Yes, it is a fascinating set of circumstances here. We got interested in this after a close associate or friend of the Speaker of the State Assembly, Sheldon Silver, after his friend of many years was arrested last year. We had heard that they had had a long relationship. The man's name was William Rapfogel. He ran a large charity and was arrested on charges of being involved in a scheme to embezzle millions of dollars from that charity over the years. And his wife was the Speaker Silver's chief of staff going back to 1977. So I wanted to know kind of the nature of that relationship, the course of it, how they got to know each other, what they did together. And we thought initially it was going to be sort of a social thing. And as part of that, I started looking back in the mayoral archives. I thought maybe I would find just correspondences between Speaker Silver and city officials saying, here's my friend Willie Rapfogel, please consider him for some job or some funding. There was some of that, but this piece of land called the Sewer Park Urban Renewal Area was a recurring theme and just kept coming up. And the archives for 4 mayors had numerous correspondence and meetings for minutes saying these 2 gentlemen were working together with another group called United Jewish Council that they were both very close with for that period of time, in efforts to really control what happened there. So that's how I got started on it.
In fact, there were some developments on the corner of these sites. It hasn't sat completely unpopulated, but even there, I think it was 150 some odd units. Unsurprisingly, it turned out that more than 120 of those units went to Jewish families, and that caused a controversy decades ago as well. This isn't that all of a sudden there's been debate, at least within this immediate area, about this. It just never has percolated really until I've seen this piece about, well, why hasn't it gotten filled? And again, who's getting the homes, right?
I think that's right. Yes, it has been percolating. Everybody in that community has certainly known that there's been a recurring battles every few years over what to do with that land, and it's always been a fight between the Orthodox Jewish interests, the advocates for the Puerto Rican community there, and then Chinatown, which has been growing and encroaching into the older Jewish community there for all of that 50 years.
I'm curious from your reporting, Russ, what do people believe the prevailing reason is as to why? Is it that the community really wanted their representative, in this case Shelley Silver and others, to keep it as homogenous as possible? Or was it that Shelley Silver was looking out politically for self-interest, that the constituencies most likely to vote for him, he wanted to keep there?
I would tell you, political people have presumed for 50 years that, or as long as he's been in office since 1977, that was the Speaker's primary motivation, was to preserve the core of his district and to not have that diluted by an influx of another 2,000, 3,000 families that maybe would be of other backgrounds and not so closely aligned with him. But there were other communities here who were fighting for their interests in this as well, and it was out of that fight that this thing repeatedly got stalled out.
Curious, Russ, what's been the response from the Speaker since the story broke?
Well, I think some of that response is going to be the subject of another news article, so I don't want to get into it in great detail. But initially, the Speaker said some of the comments that were attributed to him in the 1970s weren't him, they were another man, until we showed him the documents of letters that he wrote on his assembly letterhead from which those quotes were drawn, and then he sort of backed off that.
And obviously, there's the human dynamic to this. And as you reported, Judy Rapfogel still has the support of the Speaker, while William Rapfogel, in a relationship that goes back more than 40 years, I think you quoted him saying he has nothing now to do with Willie Rapfogel. It's further, I guess, would be muddied by some of all the rumors and innuendos with both the Speaker and his aide. How much of that plays into this as well, is that two men who had a common agenda no longer do?
Well, yes, Willie Rapfogel, the Speaker's longtime friend, is sort of a man without a country right now. And we should say also that there has been, there finally was a proposal that got through and is scheduled to break ground sometime next year that will be a mix of housing and commercial products as well. So through, I think, partly the changes on the Lower East Side that happened completely independently of everything we've been talking about, just an influx of new, younger people, the Jewish community diminishing in its not size necessarily, but in its sort of homogenous control of the neighborhood. All of that is allowed for the progress on that site to go forward.
All right, and finally, Russ, you gave it a bit of a tease here. When can readers expect here that they can see an update on this story from you?
I think sometime early next week.
Good enough. I will certainly be following it. Fascinating story. Russ Buettner, again, here, investigative reporter of the Times. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Richard.
And coming up next, we will introduce you to a few kids who have touched many hearts across this country with their commitment to both happiness despite going against it against all odds. New Jersey mom making a tearful plea also to the governor after her daughter lost her life to a rare form of epilepsy. And the young girl affectionately known as Princess Lacey losing her battle to cancer.